nine, eight, seven, six, five, four, three, two, one.
Hi, everyone. I'm happy to be here. I'm Tracy Benson, CEO and co-founder of OBSESH. And today I'm bringing forward a great conversation with some amazing people, great athletes around finding purpose and passion in sports and a career, and what it means to compete in life, to compete at the highest level, and to compete in your own career. So thank you and welcome you. And if we could just take a few minutes, I'd love to start and have each of you give a little introduction about yourself. And why don't we take it, Maddie? I'll turn it over to you first.
Perfect. Thank you, Tracy. Thanks for having us. My name is Maddie Price. I'm a 400-meter and 4x4 sprinter for Team Canada. I was born and raised in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley, but have been competing for Canada since I was 17 or 18 years old, as I have dual citizenship. Both my parents were from Canada, so Toronto is like a second home for me, as well as the Bay Area. So grew up playing every sport, from ballet to motocross. Was super grateful. My parents threw me in everything and just kind of figured out what we liked from there. So at first it was my dream to go to the Olympics in soccer and then basketball, and then track kind of came in later in life. So it's funny to see how this pursuit has now taken me into track. So I graduated from Duke University, where I was a student athlete. I studied sociology and political science and ran track there, and did a one-year master's in the business school, a master's in management studies, and am now training and coaching and working remotely in Durham, North Carolina, still at Duke, and have my sights set on the Tokyo 2021 games, as I just barely missed the Rio 2016 team. So I'm very excited for this coming year and pursuing my dreams further. So
Thank you, Maddie. Dan, you want to give yourself a little intro?
Hi, yeah. Again, thanks for having us, Tracy. I'm Dan Worden. I am a professional cliff diver, a swimmer, just kind of a multi-sport athlete, kayaking, free diver. I grew up in Oregon, but then moved out to Hawaii and competed at the University of Hawaii for both the swimming and diving teams. And now I do a lot of brand and Instagram social media content, as well as working on a water safety curriculum for elementary students out here in the state of Hawaii.
Pauls?
Yes, thank you for having me. Again, it's a pleasure. It's an honor. I'm an Olympic pole vaulter. As you see, this long stick, I'm jumping with that. And I went to Rio Olympics, which was a dream come true. And currently, I'm still focusing on going to the next Olympics, Tokyo 2021 now. Been postponed for 1 year. And I'm actually originally from Latvia, that country right here. And it's a small little country on the whole global scale. But I'm still pleasure from being from that country. I'm coming into the States, went to University of Memphis because of the college, and studied here for international business in Mandarin, Chinese also known. And after I graduated, I took 1 year off just to fully focus on Rio Olympics, just to fully devote myself to athletics. And then that's how I got to compete and represent my country, my Latvia. And since then, I've been still staying in the University of Memphis and area, and still practicing training and combining it, balancing it out with trigger point therapy, mindful yoga, or something on the side, hustle, so to say, that I'm doing, and combining that with the athletics.
Great, thank you. And I'm excited for everybody to get to know you, to follow you, to inspire you, and to cheer you on, as this is going to be a big coming year. Okay, so let's warm up a little. Give us a little bit of background and story. When did you know you were a competitor? When did you know that moment you decided to pursue this career as an athlete, as an Olympian or otherwise? as a professional to support yourself as an athlete? What drives you? Why don't we start with you, Maddie?
Yeah, so I would say, I think from the beginning, I knew I wanted to go to the Olympics. I knew that I wanted to be at the highest level, but I think, Tracy, to your point of when did you know you wanted to really do this professionally and make kind of somewhat of a living out of it or try and support yourself, was really towards the end of college. Started to run faster and faster and realize, okay, this is a potential, like I have this dream here, and so if I can do anything in my power to make that a reality, then that's what I'm gonna do. So I think just having some of the motivation and inspiration from my coaches, from my dad, who is a professional athlete himself, and race cars and raced motorcycles off road. So I think all along from those inspiring factors, it really just like lit a fire inside me from a young age. And then towards the end of college, coming out into this professional world now.
Great. Let me go to you, Dan, and talk a little bit about, your transition from college and your hopes and dreams and where that took you.
I think kind of similar to what Maddie said, every Olympic sport, the athlete that as a kid, growing up, all you think about is the Olympics because that's the only place you see your sport. So I grew up swimming, and of course I wanted to go Olympics and do that kind of stuff. And then in college, when I had my shoulder surgery and blew out right before the 2008 and then 2012, because I was training for Olympic trials both those years, I obviously didn't make it because of the shoulder surgery. And that's when the transition kind of happened of realizing that I wasn't done being an athlete. Graduated, trying to be outside, trying to work in like a real job, and it wasn't me. And so looking for ways to keep that kind of athletic career going. I was cliff diving in college, but then also started cliff diving afterwards. And that's what started taking off in terms of the branded content. So doing photography, doing cliff diving, brands wanted that kind of stuff. And so they started hitting me up and calling me and saying, hey, will you do this shoot? Will you give us product for this? Or do you want to promote that? And that transition, like it just, part of it was natural of just moving along from, hey, here's my structured athletic career. And now I'm going to move on to doing not so structured, but still being an athlete. And part of it was a conscious desire of realizing that, I still wanted that amount of physical activity in my life. I couldn't just be sedentary. I couldn't sit there. I needed to be doing something active and outside. And while I still can, eventually someday I'm not gonna be able to jump off a cliff and land. But while I still can, I figure, I want to do that.
Well, let's hope you can always do that, because I've seen your skills, I've seen your work, and it's remarkable. And the fact that you can land on what you call a pinhole is unbelievable. So we always hope we have you jumping off cliffs, always safely. Paul, why don't you give us, where was that moment? How'd you start? Coming from Latvia, like how did that all evolve and transition? And what's it been like, both as somebody who has participated already, achieved Olympic status, and now give us a little bit about that. Tell us your story.
Absolutely. So I've been an athlete since I was a little kid. Our father, when I'm saying our, is like my brother and I, we're always like a rebel, so to say. We're always competing with one another. So our father always gave us like he was opportunity to give us different kind of sports. So we were in martial arts, then we were in swimming too. And then we transitioned to track and field, and I was decathlon for a little while. And then my brother decided, he likes pole vault the best. So we kind of started to pick up pole vaulting a little bit more and more. Although on the side, I was still doing skateboarding, snowboarding, doing quite a lot of different extreme stuff on the side. And then it kind of got more serious until I got better. And later on, next thing I know, I'm getting better and better. I'm starting to qualify for these European championships, just having more and more higher level kind of competitions that I was starting to compete. And then when I missed out to London Olympics, it was like just 10 centimeters. I decided, you know what, I might as well use the opportunity that my result is high enough that I can receive a scholarship in university in abroad. And abroad, we always kind of look to the States as like the center where we really want to go, and then go into these colleges, have that college experience and into the States. And transition to that. First 2 years were pretty tough. The next year was pretty good, and afterwards just get better and better. I got to qualify to Rio Olympics, which was already a dream come true, and I couldn't really comprehend that I got to it until I was actually walking into the stadium. I was like, hold up. Okay, you actually made this here. And you started to walk into the stadium, like you started looking, like it was completely dark outside. It was a night. And you look at the stars up in the sky and it's like, wow, you know what, just completely enjoy this moment. You know, just be fully here. And now whatever happens, just enjoy it. That's it. And that's
a rad perspective.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. But again, that experience took me a while. That you should not wait for something to happen just to start to enjoy it. Like every moment that we're living is just as blissful as it was on the Olympics.
That's great. I always say it takes, because I hear from so many of you, it takes a lot more to compete other than just competing to win, to try and get to the next level. And there is inevitably a lot of pressure. And while you're used to dealing with pressure of competition, which probably consumes, a good portion of the mindset you have to be in, just narrowing in to compete, what are some of the other pressures that you are challenged with off your, field or off your track or, off the cliff? What are some of those pressures that you have struggled with as an athlete en route to what no doubt is the highest, performance in the world, right? You can't, by nature of what you do, whether it's, diving off of a 75-foot cliff into a small round opening, or competing, to win the Pan Am Games or the World Games or the Olympics. What are some of those pressures that, are outside of the realm of the actual time and moments of competing that you deal with? I'll throw it open to anybody.
I think, rehab is a big one. And I've done a lot with my shoulder. Maddie, I'm sure you've done a ton with your foot and everything. But in terms of a training schedule, your time training for the actual sport and competition doesn't always take into account that rehab or like self-care and self-healing or stretching and stuff like that. And it should. But a lot of athletes' mindsets don't. They're just focused on, oh, what do I have to do the actual physical training? So that's a big part of it. I think also money, as kind of sad as that is, but when you're an athlete and like a student athlete, you have school to kind of balance with, but that's also your full-time job. And once you're not in school anymore and you have to balance, you're like, oh wait, there's this other realm of life that is drawing my attention, it's taking away. A lot of the triathletes that I've coached, I get up at 5:30 in the morning to coach them. They go do their 9-to-5 job and then they're coming back and doing the swim training after the bike. So it's keeping going, burning the wick at both ends and trying to maintain that balance as well as still improving. I think that's a huge mental toll on people.
Definitely. Yeah, I think to jump off that, it really does. Also, it's the pressure that we put on ourselves, right? With that timing that Dan's mentioning, that's huge, of just all of us to get to the highest level. We're our harshest critics sometimes, which can be great. It really makes us amazing at what you're doing, because you have to kind of critique and figure out ways to get better. You have to be creative, but it also can take a toll. So those pressures, I think, can be combated with a lot of mental training, right? Journaling, your sports psych, like all those different kind of avenues that we're always trying to find to better ourselves and lessen the individual pressure or the family and external pressure, or whatever it may be that we feel. So I think, to Dan's point, that's another toll that can take on athletes that's important to prioritize, is that mental health on that side of the pressure.
Completely agree with Maddie and Dan. So on point, where when you are going to the college, you can balance it out like with your athletics, and then there's your school life, and then after you graduate, then there's a new kind of phase where you have to figure out if you're getting actually any sponsorships that you can sustain yourself to continue practice on your best higher level. So you invest that time, energy for the recovery, for the mindset, and keep learning, and then for the practices, which is the most important part. sleep, eat, you know, and completely train, fully focus on that. But again, not everyone is able to do that. And I think athletes in general, they have amazing experience, amazing knowledge, wisdom that they can share to other people. And, you know, in that case, this is something that I do on the side with the experiences with like giving these sessions for other people, which is like trigger point therapy and mindful yoga. And then also physical preparation, as also Dan and Maddie works as well, and coaching. I think that's amazing, but at the same time, it takes away a lot of time and energy that you could put in of actually training yourself and being the best of your level, highest of your capabilities. And that's what takes a lot of energy, a lot of time. And while it's good like to have a little distraction from your athletics, if it's too much, it takes a lot of energy out, and then you have little to nothing to left for actually your own self-growth. But that's something I can add for that.
So to that point, with the global health pandemic that we have here at hand, and you know, you're making a career and a profession trying to achieve the highest honors, you know, by your body, your mind, your lungs, your feet, your everything. How's the global pandemic been for you? What are some of the things that maybe it's given you as silver lining, and other things that it's really challenged you in unknown ways? You know, maybe brought forward challenges and pressures you never realized.
Yeah,
Paul's?
Yeah, I can share some experience here. What I've noticed that people are stuck in their homes and they're not engaging with anyone. They're pretty much, unless they have very close friends, they're not having that social interaction, what humans in general are made to do and made to be, you know, to have that social interaction, talking with another, engaging, anything that they do. Now, this is taken to the next level where social media and media in general, there's an opportunity, a chance to finally connect with one another and the entire globe. And that's one of the best things that I've seen. People literally are just lacking just an interaction with one another. Even in these sessions, online sessions that I'm giving, people come there not only to learn things, but also just to have that social interaction, which is amazing for the mental health. Otherwise, a lot of people are alone, you know, by themselves, and some people are not able to comprehend with their own or deal with their own mind. And if they're not able to do that, then a lot of times what happens is depression, anxiety, you know, all the negative energies that comes to people in the certain situations of uncertainty. And whenever you have this, I think it's very important when social media is not dividing us, you know, not comparing one another, you know, but actually connecting with one another. And I think this is amazing what OBSESH is doing right now, you know, connecting people.
Dan, you know, just real quick, as Paul's is talking about social media, a big piece of the way you make an income today, you know, is through social media. Talk a little bit about what you're seeing in the pandemic. Are you seeing some of the similar things that people want to connect versus compare? What are the things that you noticed before and maybe what you're seeing now? And it could be across any spectrum of that, you know?
It's just been an interesting environment with everything going on. You know, being locked down, not able to travel. A lot of the friends and people I interact with are the travel sphere and the adventure sphere, and being locked at home, a lot of people are going through their old content, their old photos, and trying to figure out, you know, what can I still have? What can I repurpose? They're trying to put a fresh new spin on it. And some of it's really good. It brings out a lot of creativity in people. But then some of the times you read the captions, or you look at the photos, and you can just tell that it's being forced. I read one of my friend's captions just yesterday, and I could tell right from the beginning that something was a little different. And then, oh, there it is, it's an ad. But it's the way he was writing it was because he only had this certain photo that he could pair with it. He didn't have anything new that he could go out and shoot. And so it's been interesting to see people trying to adapt to how, okay, I'm stuck inside. Oh, I don't have the same resources. I can't go to the same places. and still try and do their business model of either creating content for brands, you know, with just their limited living room area space or whatever they can get to, but also in how they speak to their audience and saying, hey, this is still who I am. This is still what I need to do in order to survive. And this is all I have. So I've got to be creative with it. And then you've also got the whole dynamic of TikTok and Instagram and Snapchat, that they're all, you know, in flux and everything. And that's just changed the dynamic of who's pushing towards what platform and what kind of content goes on each one. It's been a really interesting time in the pandemic to see people, I don't even know if I can say being flexible. It really is just adapting to the everyday different changes and what's going on.
Well, let's stay on that topic. And Maddie, you know, what's different and what's the opportunity for you, or the new challenges you've faced? You've got, you know, this 2021 is now the year we're hoping. I don't know if that's been finalized, but let's just, you know, with a little bit of luck, let's say, yes, it is. What are some of the challenges and opportunities that you've been tackling?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for everyone has just been this uncertainty, being able to be okay with uncertainty as athletes. And I think business people and change makers alike, we all like plans. We like structure, and we really like that plan where we know we're going to peak at a certain time, especially in sport, right? You nail that down and you know, okay, I'm going to peak here. And so to let that go and to just be okay with, yes, it's this day-to-day mindset. What can I do tomorrow to help me still achieve my goal, but then still have the big kind of longer term vision at the end, like day-to-day mindset, but longer term kind of in your mind's eye a little bit, was a big transition for me, just being able to really go day to day.
Out of curiosity, like, have you been able to kind of like hit a reset button and be able to find a rhythm with being in the pandemic, or has it been totally different in terms of your training? And I know the rehab kind of plays in that as well, but I'm just curious, like, how's your rhythm been, I guess?
It's a great question. It has been way out of rhythm for most of quarantine, which was part of the challenging part. Like, I would wake up and feel a little anxious because I was like, do I bike ride today? Am I like going to go swim? Like, when am I going to do that? Right? That whole kind of question if I don't have that set training plan. So I think recently, over the last couple of weeks, it's gotten a little bit better. Like, all day yesterday, I sat down with a huge poster board and wrote out, okay, this is the rehab I need to do. These are the set meetings I have every week. This is kind of the coaches meetings. This is my athlete respite time where I just take my time to like journal and be on my own, and really scheduling that in has felt so much better. So we're on our way, I think, as I'm starting to get more into cross training and biking, but it's a great question, Dan. So a lot of out of rhythm stuff, but learning to be okay with that has been a good skill, some patience, I think. How about you? Have you had some rhythm here and there?
It's been crazy out here with, most of my training I try and do in a pool rather than in the ocean for swimming, because that's my main cardio training, and just none of the pools have been open. So trying to adapt to do more open water swims, cliff diving. You know, the gyms have really been open for us in Hawaii. I think we're still one of the most locked down states. So yeah, my friend actually built a squat rack out of wood and we've been training at his house. And yeah, it's been definitely really different. Pauls, what about you? I mean, I know you've been doing a lot of your other stuff with the different experiences, but how's your rhythm been?
I was lucky enough that my brother is a civil engineer, and he literally built a 2-story high equipment specifically just for pole vault. So we don't need to be outdoors anymore. Backyard, and we literally, there's like a monkey bar, so to say, complete setup there.
Cool.
It's a lot of things, and then we're adapting. Honestly, the best thing you can have is the adaptation. I mean, and we're experiencing right now. And once we adapt, you know, they adapt quickly, easily. That's how it easily goes further.
Yeah.
As you sit, I want to talk a little bit about, you know, how do you afford to be an athlete today? You know, you don't have a league salary. You don't have a league to work for. You don't have, like, I know in some cases it's probably coming from a lot of places. I remember I used to live off of a box of Velveeta cheese for about 50 days. I would sell stuff I don't need. I've had plenty of athletes sell gear I've given them that they don't need. How do you, you know, what are some of the expenses that you have outside of like a place to live, and how do you afford that? What do you do to put those parts and pieces together?
A lot of hustle, and then honestly, I'm very glad that things that are happening for me right now, and everything that happens is actually for you in general. It's not happening to you, it's happening for you, but it's sometimes hard to see it. And when you start to see it, that's when you know later on in life, like, oh, this is why it happened. This is why it happened to me before. And at the beginning, you were looking at like, oh no, this is a bad thing. But for now, the experiences, the online sessions that I'm giving for trigger point therapy, for mindful yoga, for even the core sessions, six pack with Olympian.
Note to self, six pack with an Olympian. Everybody can take it.
It was more so for the health benefits, not for the six pack, but you can still, that's the bonus. That's the bonus of the physical, of the review. But all of it, it's amazing, it's great, but it takes so much time and so much energy that you just can't relax, because you have to continue to implement, you have to put something new in there. And it's very hard to balance it out, or almost impossible to balance it out with your trainings, because if you have sessions during the day, maybe an entire day, you're not going to be good for the athletics, for anything that you're trying to do, whether it be for physical preparation, for tempo runs, for the recovery as well, because a lot of it just takes so much time, so much energy. You have to continue engaging. Well, I love to do it. It's really amazing. I really enjoy it. The benefits that people are getting, and the reviews that people leave, they really are grateful and thankful, and they keep coming back just because, each session I give my 100% to everyone. I want to give my best, and that's how anything that you do, you should be doing this, like giving your 100%, your best. Never compare yourself to anyone else, but your best. Learn along the way, but it takes a lot of time.
Yeah. So Dan, tell us a little bit about, you have transitioned. So give us a little bit of sense of what life looks like on a daily, monthly basis, and how's that going?
I've been really lucky in what I did, is to basically create my own job during this time, and even beforehand, where I get to combine my passion for photography, to combine my passion for athletics, combine my passion for water safety, and get to work with kids in the water, creating this water safety program, taking all the photo visuals for it, and get to be coaching and training for it. On a day-to-day basis, it takes a lot of my time to focus on it. And honestly, I missed a lot of the adventuring, where I was solely just an Instagram photography, adventurer. That was a great life. It was really fun. You get to go around, you get to do anything you want. And literally just saying like, hey, today I'm going to swim to that island, and you go for it, and then you kind of document it. But where I was at is I paid my rent, and I had $75 in my bank account. And I was like, I need something else to kind of supplement. Like the amount of hustle, Paul's talking about, you're constantly going, you're constantly grinding, trying to work with different brands, trying to pitch yourself, trying to do these different things. And it wears on you. And eventually you're like, oh man, I don't know if I can swim that whole way today. I don't have the time, or I have to edit these photos over here for the brand. And so when I sat there and I was like, wow, I need to figure something else out. And that's when the opportunity for the water safety curriculum director position came open. And I was like, I'm going to do that as long as I can still adventure some, but I'm going to try and make it work. And so far it's been a hard to balance. It's been really fun to do it. But it definitely does detract from, the more you put your energy into one thing, you don't have that same amount of energy to be an athlete, or to be taking photos, or to go out and doing social media. And I've definitely noticed that in my own training, where I don't get to swim 5 days a week anymore. I have to pick 3, and that way I can lift on the other 2, rather than being able to do doubles, 3 swim or 5 swim practices and 3 lifting practices, and then go, kayak or something. So it's a balance. I already said that, but it's tough. But I like what I do, but I do miss being able just to be a purely athlete, and I wish that was more of a possibility for sure.
And you've talked a little bit about some of the struggles where you've seen the brands shift, and fans in your social media shift. What are some of the things that you've seen used to work for you? Maybe they do or don't.
That's a tough question. It's all about authenticity, being you and being real. And I knew when I posted branded content, it was different, you know, a little bit. Like, it's still me. I'm saying, hey, I really like this brand, or I really work for them. But brands that I'd used before I was doing social media and content versus the ones that I only had tried afterwards, there was a little bit of like realism in terms of what I could say. The friend I mentioned before, I was reading that ad that he had just posted, you know, last week during the pandemic. It's that kind of caption or that kind of content where you pick up on it really fast, or your fans, your followers pick up on, oh, this is a branded post. Like, I can tell he's trying to make it sound nice, so then he's going to throw in that pitch for like what the product is. Versus if you're authentic and really just talking about what you want to be, that's never really going to go out of style, but it's really hard to keep it going, especially when all the time you have to be working with different brands. I've seen a lot of change in terms of how blunt people are. You know, in the beginning, it was like, I'm going to sit here, I'm going to hold up my bottle of shampoo or whatever it was, you know, and talk about it. Versus now people are trying to integrate it into like, oh, it's showing me swimming, but in a minute I'm going to go take a shower. You know, it's more about product placement and sliding it into the image rather than being just about the image itself. Every brand that I've worked with, I've done, I think I'm to toot my own horn, I do a little more research into them than a lot of my other friends do. And some of them that just didn't seem like it fit for me, or didn't seem like an ethical practice. Like, I didn't want to be associated with them, because when you put yourself out there, when you do it, you're associating yourself with a brand. I'm becoming a face for them, you know, whether it is just one post or not. People are looking at you. That's what an influencer is having influence of like, oh, hey, Dan does that, or Dan uses this product, I also want to. And if you're associating yourself with something that isn't the best long term, it looks bad on you, especially if you're doing tons and tons of different ones. I used to get 40, 50 emails a day from different brands. So I said yes to maybe 1% of them. And there were things that I really said, hey, I can use this in my life. I already do use this in my life, or I want to. And it's a quality product or something that I actually would use. And that's been the only way that I've been able to maintain that authenticity. Power Bar was one of my favorite ones when they reached out to me. I got to do an ad for them. Like, I was stoked about it, where I was like, yes, like I used to live on Power Bars, and like that kind of caption, that kind of writing, it still sounds different than some of my other ones, but when it comes through to that, that's the times where you really want to say yes, versus when you're pitching a, you know, random water bottle or soap. It's not as exciting, and it's not as on brand for you. And yeah, that's what's important.
Maddie, what about you? You know, and I know you've recently fell into the TikTok platform. So maybe share a little bit. What do your fans want from you? What are they sliding into your DMs? What are you doing? And et cetera.
Yeah, it's a great question. Honestly, with the TikTok, I attribute a lot of that to my little sister helping me with that too. So that's been a combo team effort there for her helping me. Yeah, I think recently, I think Dan hit the nail on the head with authenticity. I think that's just been the biggest thing for me, is just trying to show my journey, trying to show like, okay, I am injured right now. Like, I had this surgery and now we're working back to it, and not just showing like the highlight reel, which Instagram can be very just easy for that to happen, and easy to compare your path to others. So I think just showing the ups and downs has really been one of my biggest goals with social media. Watching the film on Netflix recently, The Social Dilemma, kind of talking about the ups and downs of that. I don't know if you guys saw it, but it's definitely worth a watch. As amazing as social media is, it can be super hard with the comparison. I know Paul has touched on this earlier. So yeah, a lot of it's just been sharing my story, sharing the ups and downs of surgery and some of the hardships. I've talked about grief and loss in some posts, and had a lot of people reach out to me and asking, okay, how did you deal with the loss? My dad passed away like 4 years ago. And so dealing with that, getting back on the track, getting back kind of that confidence is something that I've been open about and talking about. So I think just being open and authentic, that's what I've been focused on as well.
And what's the one thing you noticed? If there was one thing, what do your fans want to learn from you? What do they hope to get from you? You know, they wake up every day and they're like, I got to see what Dan's doing. I got to see what Paul's is doing. I got to see what Maddie's doing. What is that one thing that you know you got to deliver for your fans and your followers, because they're trying to find that from you or learn from you?
Yeah, I would say right off the bat, top of mind would just be like mindset and then inspiration too, right? Like if we can kind of keep pushing forward in what we're doing athletically, then like anybody can. And so being able to show that like we're getting after it every day, and being able to just keep moving forward, especially through this time, I would say that was number one, at least during the pandemic. And then just little tips and tricks, right? Like nutrition, I get a lot of questions about that, or just the little details, I think, that really add up and then make the high performance possible at the end of the day.
Far and away, the most asked question I get is, where is this? You know, with mine, I have I have more of a split between being an athlete and a travel influencer. And so, yeah, just the where is this question is undoubtedly the most common question.
If only you could charge $1 for that, you'd be wealthy.
Oh man, and I still wouldn't want to, you know, like it's been crazy. This is a whole other topic of talking about how geotagging and the amount of respect you have for a place, if you put in the effort to go find it, it makes you want to take care of it more. And I've noticed that I'm not against telling people where spots are, but I want to make sure that they do the research and do, you know, how do I get there? What is it? And if they're willing to go through that kind of effort, then that tells me that they're going to want to take care of the place. They're not going to leave trash. They're not going to do stuff, you know, wherever the location is.
Yeah.
I also get asked a lot about, you know, how do you do a backflip, or, you know, what is my routine? I guess I get asked that sometimes for what do I need to do to train to be able to do some of the tricks. But it depends on the person, because you look at, it's not quite as easy as like, oh, what's your nutrition or what do you eat? Because every person needs a little bit of different strength, a little bit of different flexibility in order to do flips and stuff. But no, the far and away, the question is, you know, where is this? Where did you go? How do I get there?
Yeah. Pauls, what about you?
Yeah, my questions are pretty straightforward. I've kind of defined already what exactly my content is, and I try to share it more of like the specific techniques. So example, like if you have tight muscles in your glutes, in your back, if something hurts in your body, like a spasm in the back perhaps, or you have tired eyes, or you're not quite sure where the migraine is coming from. So I actually go to the specific spots, specific techniques of how to release it. And then in terms of workouts as well, which exactly body part, you know, you want to train. Like a lot of people have sent me, can you send me a training plan? I'm like, that's very individual. Each individual is very unique. Each individual is going to have a different training program. Each individual is going to have different, even nutrition that they eat. You know, no one's going to have the same kind of like sheet of paper, you know, follow through. So it's very, very unique. And that's why I'm giving these sessions, because it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time, and there's so much knowledge, so much wisdom that I can share, and it's just, you know, not enough to share it in one little message. Maybe very basic, you know, very short video. It's like Maddie, if you're on the TikTok, I'm sure you know they're working on these like short little video, like 15-second video. You know, you have to jam in so much knowledge in like 15 seconds. And it's possible, but like you will have only a small little glimpse. And unfortunately, people are having less and less of attention or you know, paying attention to anything right now. That's why you have to kind of adapt to what people focus on. It's been quite a bit of a challenge, but I think it's interesting. You know, you gotta adapt, just like with anything.
You've done a great job, Pauls, I should say. You really have targeted your content that you put out there in a very specific path. And so that's very clear. I just want to ask a couple last questions. So have you ever felt a couple feet underwater? And, you know, how do you bring yourself back up, you know, as you're trying to think about my mind, my body, my, you know, everything, to narrow in on what we always say in athletics was, you know, one thing at a time, one step at a time, one jump at a time, one, you know, dive at a time. So have you ever felt some of those challenges, or something that really felt like an overwhelming challenge and you were able to bring yourself back to it?
For me, the quickest thing that comes to mind is after my shoulder surgery, being bedridden. It was they actually took a piece of my collarbone and put it in front of my shoulder so it would stop popping out. So not only was it suturing down some of the skin tissue and stuff, but like replacing bone. So I was in bed for like 4 to 6 weeks, I think. And although I'd already had that realization of I'm not done being an athlete, that solidified it. Not being able to move, like I felt my muscles just like contracting in bed of saying like, hey, use me, like do something. And I was a little bit depressed in that moment of like, you know, am I going to be able to get back to diving? Am I ever going to be able to do overhead arm motions to swim? And then the pressure of not being able to be out and create and make money, because at that time I was doing full-time social media photographer. So the stress of financial stuff at the same time, like that was a rough little period of time for sure. And the good news is I got a lot of good help with shoulder rehab. I'm not quite back to where I was originally, you know, and I never will be because I have a different piece of bone in my shoulder. But being able to be active and be around friends for me is huge. Like that's how I've been able to get through it is, you know, as Paul mentioned, in this time of being stuck in a pandemic, reaching out to different people, having conversations, getting to talk with people is huge. And if you miss out on that social interaction, I think that's a big piece that's missing in a lot of people that do get stuck and kind of feeling under. But that's my personal experience. I'm curious, Maddie, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, similarly, the injury has been a big turning point for me as well. But I mentioned it a little bit earlier. I think the biggest time where I felt like I was underwater was when my dad passed, and the last race that he saw was 2016 Olympic trials, where I like barely missed the team by a couple hundredths, and I was devastated, of course, right? Because that was my dream my whole life, and like my whole family was there, and it's that whole thing. But I think in that moment, it was so clear that no matter the result, that was probably the most proud my dad and mom and sister had ever been of me, regardless of making the team or not, right? Because it's about the like sacrifice and the dedication and the grit and the courage to put yourself on that line at the Olympic trials or whatever competition or whatever kind of big feat that you're going for. That's the biggest part. And the end result is icing on the cake, right? That Olympics, of course, is still my dream. But that moment, I think I'll always remember, even though it was a hardship, but it was still, he was so proud. So I think taking ownership of my own path and my own story and having his kind of inspiration and motivation still there, kind of as that guiding light, but taking the ownership of my dream instead of it always having to be our dream in the past, right? So I think that process of really just seeing the times where we get knocked down or we feel underwater, like just another opportunity to stand up and realize like what you're made of, and realize like it's another opportunity to be stronger. So yeah, I think that's
very
really
fitting for this audience, who are a lot of entrepreneurs,
yeah,
a lot of investors that are looking for those athletes as entrepreneurs. You know, you spend a lot of time competing. You often feel underwater, like from morning to night. Then you stand back up and, you know, resonating with those stories of like, own your own story, build it. You don't create, you know, Olympians overnight. You don't create high performing athletes overnight. You don't create amazing entrepreneurs overnight.
for sure.
It takes
I
the
feel
work.
like everybody has,
Yeah.
yeah, and everybody has their own struggles, right? I think
Yeah.
that's the biggest part, even if you can't see them. So
Yeah.
Paul, how about you?
As any athlete, whenever you have an injury, I know this is for every athlete. Life is over. That's it. I'm done. I'm finished. That's the initial thought that for any athlete happens. I'm sure of it. Yeah, it's such a long ways of how to understand, how to go over with your mind to understand if you're going to continue hold on to that injury, to that, you know, accident that happened, because things happen, especially for athletes. Athletes are not, you know, superheroes. They're not able to, you know, be indestructible. Something's going to happen. You know, it's just a chance. You know, your mindset though is so important of how you perceive it. To look past through that injury, to look at its opportunity. If you cannot use your, let's say, if you cannot use your leg, you sprain your ankle, you have a, you know, tore a muscle perhaps even. And what you need to understand is like you can work with the rest of the body. You know, you have your arms, you have your core, you have your neck, and most importantly, you have your mind. And I think this is the most biggest thing that anyone can work whenever you have that injury or something that's happened, is to go inside the mind to understand how the mind works and actually implement that knowledge, the wisdom, that vibration, so to say, into the positive kind of level where you start healing yourself from within, of like boosting almost like, you know, that energy from within as well, and then finding that answer and learning and reading, like a lot of education, you know, into that, a lot of exploring, so to say.
So if you were to give one piece of advice to all the entrepreneurs out there, as somebody who lives as an entrepreneurial performer, right, as a competitor, as an athlete, what would the one piece of advice be that you would share? Dan?
Make your stuff unique. I think the reason I blew up early on was that not only was I looking for, you know, dramatic cliffs and big things and stuff that other people literally couldn't do, but I was very identifiable. So whenever you saw a cliff diver in orange shorts, whether or not you knew my name, whether or not you knew Adventureman Dan, you knew that was me. There was no question. And so whenever I would get reposted on different pages, it was very unique and you could immediately identify. And that same piece of advice for any photographer that asks me questions, or any other athlete or any other entrepreneur, you want your stuff to be really good. It's got to be quality. And you also want it to be, even again, if someone doesn't know who you are specifically, but if they say, hey, I've seen that style before, I know that that's that same person. If you can get that level of like brand awareness, even without the brand name being there, people will kind of flock to that same consistent style. And
So
I think my biggest piece
be
of advice.
unique, be different is your advice to the entrepreneurs. Maddie, what's your advice?
Yeah, I would say the biggest one for me has just been knowing your why, and then really sticking to that, like doing it for you. If you're passionate about it and you love it, doesn't matter what anybody else says, doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. It's, you love it for that reason. And so just going after that and then believing in that so fiercely, and just absolutely relentlessly and going after that with all that you have is what I would say. Yeah, and having the grit to work through those obstacles. So
Awesome. Really resonates, knowing your why. Paul's one thing that you would want to share with all the entrepreneurs?
I have two things.
Okay, you could take two.
Yeah. So the first one is be consistent. Be consistent in what exactly that it is that you do. That's so important. And the second one is to enjoy what you're doing. Small progress is a huge progress. A lot of things that I've noticed, even, you know, successful people and unsuccessful people, if you are not successful and you know, you're not happy about it, not joyful about it, it's kind of understandable, you know, if you're not there where you want to be, so to say. But I've seen a lot of people who are very successful, very great at what they're doing, and you know, they have every single thing, honestly, that many people would wish for, and they're still not happy. They're not joyful. They're not enjoying it. That's so important, to enjoying the process and not aiming for the result, but really enjoying the process. You have a vision where you want to be, maybe a dream, you know, perhaps, and that might change as well, and then you adapt to it. But I think it's important to enjoy the process. It's so important. It creates happiness from within, you know, just enjoying it.
Absolutely.
So true. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you all for taking the time. I know this means a lot to the audience who will be watching this. And so please, I would love for you to share how people can follow you, how they can fan you, how they can cheer you on, and go ahead and share that. So Maddie, you want to start with you?
Yeah, on Instagram, Maddie Priceless. I have a website as well, maddieprice.net. You can check me out. I post some blogs and certain travel things, especially when I'm in season. Really is where you can watch me race, is really the main point of the blog, which is awesome. So if you want to catch me race, check me out there. And then same thing, TikTok, Maddie Priceless. So yeah, thank you so much for having me, Tracy. This has been amazing. It's been an honor. Thanks.
Dan, you want to tell people where they can find you and how they can follow you and get a hold of you?
Yeah, Instagram at Adventureman Dan is probably the main one. I think actually even more than that, working on the new thing with Paul's on the OBSESH platform. I think that's going to be the biggest place where I'm going to be active in the near future. So I'd say, you know, come back and check out the OBSESH
Want to tell us
platform.
a little bit about that, Dan? Just a real quick, what you guys are going to be doing?
Well, I feel like I should let Paul's introduce it because it's he put a lot of time and effort into it, but we're going to be co-hosting kind of a live streaming show where we go over one body and one mind, talking about the training of both the mental components and the physical components, and working towards an eventual goal where we're going to meet up together and get to do an adventure. Paul, do you have anything to add to that, or how do you want to describe it?
We're starting with the first element, with water, which is dance element, and that's why we're starting this together, and we're slowly going to implement it further on. All these sessions, truly exciting, honestly. This is something that we're already doing, but we're able to share through live feature, literally having engagement with one another, and that's honestly the most important part, especially for the world situation that we're in right now. I honestly think that's the best thing that we can possibly do, have that engagement and have our both expertise in this.
Well, and I did not pay you to promote that little on-demand course coming up, just in all fairness, but Pauls, if you could just share with people, how can they find you? What can they, you and Maddie are both aiming for Tokyo 2021, so let people know how they can find you.
Yeah, my website, pujats.org, my last name and .org. Then all the social media, Pinterest, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn is Paul Pujats. This one right here. Very easy to find. And yeah.
Nice.
That's
well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I know it is taking time out of your days of either rest, rehab, working out, or probably like entertaining fans on social media. So there's a lot of work to be done. Thank you very much, and have a great day.